Hello and thanks for tuning in. Alright, so this video is long overdue. I've been messing around with this idea for years actually. So apologise if this information would have been useful to you much sooner. But I finally decided I've got to make it. So I've actually come in early to the venue where we have the show. This is the Sound Centre in Carlisle. This is the house, as you can see. It's like 1,300 seater. I'm playing here all month. It's 34 shows till December, ending on New Year's Eve. So I'm the drummer in this pantomime band. I've done this job for 12 years. And this video is about cymbals and how to get low volume cymbals to work in a professional environment. Because if you don't use low volume cymbals, you've got to use the plastic cymbals that electronic drums use, which, if you've used them, you know it's not good. They're getting better, but the least that's going to happen is it's going to alter your playing technique, and it's not as fun as playing real cymbals. So this is my setup, if you can see. So I've got Roland pads and I've got low volume cymbals. Now these are buffed bronze Gen 16 cymbals. These are the original Zildjian ones, even before the L80s. You don't need these cymbals. These actually are hard to get and they're quite expensive because people think they're better than the other low volume cymbals, but they're not really much different. They just look more like cymbals because they've got a bronze finish. So here's a basic one. This is a 13-inch hi-hat top, and it sounds like this as just a cymbal. So basically, this video is how to make your low volume cymbals sound professional and sound worthy of being in a gig like this. And I've experimented with this since Gen 16s came out, about 2012, I think, I started with them. I started using the original versions with the microphone pickups in this venue, and I'll be honest, I was disappointed. It wasn't what I thought. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. But anyway, let's not talk about the pickups. Let's just stay on the subject about the cymbals. So the basic thing is you can make your cymbals sound good by simply taping them up. So I've got a couple of examples here that I can show you. So this is one, like I say, without any tape. Doesn't really sound very cymbalish, but if I show you, this is my hi-hat here, if you can see that. So if I play that, that's quite different to the sound of the other hi-hat that I just played you. So this is what this one sounds like on its own. We'll have to do a comparison. So this is what this one that I'm using sounds like on its own. You hear how much deeper it is than this. So that's a hi-hat top. This is the difference. It's tape, just simple electrical tape. So bear with me if this video's all over the place. I've come in early to the venue to try and make this, to show you the setup in the setting, but I've got no script and the information is going to come out a bit random. So, but I want you to have it because honestly, I think it's life-changing if you're a show drummer, if you're playing pantomimes, or if you're playing theatres where they demand low volume or electronic stuff. So basically what I've got here is the bell of the cymbal is completely covered in tape. Now what that does, that makes the cymbal project. It doesn't lower the tone, it doesn't lower the pitch of the cymbal. This itself, here's another example. If you see this one, I've got this stack here. This is a china with a 16-inch china with a 12-inch splash. Now this splash I've treated in the same way. It's got tape in the middle. It's actually got tape on both sides, this one. So hear that. It sounds very deep, but more than the fact it sounds deep is that the sound of this cymbal projects. It projects much better than if it didn't have the tape. So now when you add this one, I've taken all the tape off it. You can hear what it sounds like. You hear the difference? So lesson one here is that when you tape up the bell, it makes the cymbal project. All right, so let's say if I take all this tape off here, you can have hours of fun with this. If you take all the tape off the top, you hear that it's a higher pitch now. Now the reason the pitch was lower, because when you tape up beyond the bell, you can see a few catchphrases coming out of this, huh? When you tape up beyond the bell, it reduces the pitch. So if you just tape up the bell, it's just a projection, and the volume actually. One thing that really surprised me when I started doing this is that when you put tape on these, the volume goes up. And the odd person I've said this to, and they go, oh yeah, that's obvious. I'm like, no, it's not obvious at all. What else, when you put tape on it, does the volume go up? But it's not sufficient that it's a problem for this gig. So if you see here, what I've got here, this is a 12-inch splash on a 16-inch china. And it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good. So what else have I got here? I'll show you some other examples. So the first thing you need to know, as I said, is you tape up the bell. Now, when I started doing this, I used to tape it up on the outside, like this. So for example, if you look at this one, it's not fully taped up, so it's not as loud. So depending on how much tape you put on the bell, determines how much the volume and projection is increased. So because there's gaps on this, it's not as loud as one where it's all taped up. So let's look at this piece of tape here. Now what this piece of tape here does is it evens out very slightly all the other parts of the cymbal sound. So I'm going to play you it with this tape on, and then I'm going to gradually take the bits of tape off, and then you can hear the difference. So this crash cymbal, it sounds really, really good now in a live situation. It cuts through sufficiently to be heard, but you can still talk over it. So this is what it sounds like now. So that is an 18-inch crash ride cymbal with tape on the bell and one piece of tape here, and this piece of tape makes a massive difference. There's nothing on the underneath side of this one. So I'll play it again, and then I'm going to remove this bit of tape. Okay, now remember that. So now I take this bit of tape off. So now it looks like that. And this is what it sounds like now. I don't know if you can hear that, but the cymbal's brighter. So it gets quite interesting because you can, it's actually like a way into understanding how to make cymbals. If you're interested in making cymbals, which I don't, but you get to understand what all the different parts of the cymbal do. So this affects the projection, the bell, and how much the bell's taped up. Having that little piece of tape that ran right across the radius of the cymbal, that leveled out all of the really bright frequencies. So it sounded, okay, let's use those analogies. It sounded a bit more like a K, and now it sounds a bit more like an A zildjian, a bit brighter. So I'll play you some of these other ones just to give you some other ideas of what they sound like. So this is the splash. All this has just got tape underneath the bell. If you can see, that's white tape. So this one sounds like this. And that sounds great live. With the splash, you don't really want to make it sound darker because it's only a very slight margin before it's got no wash, and it needs to have a bit of wash as a splash cymbal. So this is the bottom hi-hat cymbal. I'm probably going to retape this, but basically, as you can see here, the tape it extends beyond the bell. And what does that do? It makes it, it just dries the cymbal out a bit. Just have a listen. It doesn't sound very good on its own. And actually it sounds quite dry and quite trashy. But paired with the other one, it's okay. But as I say, that's the great thing about this. You can change your cymbal sound every day, and regardless of, you might want to check just for the fun of it. Honestly, that's half the game. It's just for fun. It's just something to do for fun. When you're bored in shows, you've got time between things to mess around. So I'm going to put that back together. And then here's my hi-hat top. So that's what that sounds like. Now, believe it or not, if you put a decibel meter on it, it gets to the point where it is almost as loud as regular cymbals, but the decibel meter isn't accurate because your ears tell you that it's way quieter. And to anyone that you work with, it's easy to sell this idea to them that these are low volume cymbals, because everyone now knows that these are low volume cymbals, and I've used them in this theatre for 12 years, I set off here with it was like a Roland TD20 something kit, and what I'm left with are these 4 drums. I've got the kick, 3 toms. If I want an extra tom, I just use this pad here, which is actually works really, really well. I'm using this just for the sounds, and then Easy Drummer, just to give you a bit more information. So what do the rest of these cymbals sound like? This is the ride cymbal. Now the ride cymbal is a bit of a, it has different requirements, doesn't it? So a ride cymbal, you need the stick definition. And what's curious about this ride cymbal, or what became really obvious to me, is the difference between, well, just listen to this. So it's a 20-inch ride. This, again, it's the Zildjian buff bronze, but just get any of the cheap ones. My only advice is try them somewhere if you can. The Stag ones are really good. I recommend them, actually, having just played with them briefly in the music shop. But any of them can pretty much do this job. The main thing is you want to look out for, like the original Gen 16s, they were nickel, and they don't sound good. They sound very... Oh yeah, you're right. Recovered? If you could recovered. So this is a 20-inch with quite a decent bell, but listen to this. So this is the, now I'll move it a couple of centimeters. Hear the difference. Once you get beyond this part, it's got a completely different sound and characteristic. Sorry, bear with me. I'm holding, this is a very heavy tripod that I've got it on. It's actually a cymbal stand. So listen, that's the sound that I use mainly. And then you get this wash. So that's why I've put this tape on here, because without this tape, I've put 2 little bits of tape on just to cut that wash a little bit. But that's a pretty cutting ride sound, and the bell's realistic as well. So that's my ride, and I'll show you what it looks like underneath. So the taping is a little bit different on this one. Now, if you can see that, so I've not taped it up fully, and that is for reasons of volume. If I tape all that up fully, it will probably be a couple of dB louder. This other tape here, this is just to chop out and darken the sound of the cymbal. And these little bits here, they actually, it's kind of like hammer marks. It's like, instead of hammering your cymbals, you just put a bit of tape on them, and it just adds a little bit of complexity to it. I did have tape going right to the end, but it took out all the wash, and it made the cymbal sound just clangy, just too clangy. So even one piece of tape, too much or too little, can make all the difference. And you will find having these type of crop circles like on your cymbals. I set off calling them crop circles. But actually, seeing as I'm the person who's putting this out there, I've not seen anyone else doing this. My name's Johnny Gash, so let's just call this Gash tape. not easy to forget, isn't it? But that is the name I was born with, Jonathan Gash. That is my real name. So let's call this Gash tape. If you're into this, if you're not into this, that's fine. But as you can see, if you look at this, I've made the cymbal a bit more complex using this pattern of tape. There's little bits here and there, and you will find by putting a little bit here and there, you change the sound, and you can change the sound just as much as you want. And I think that is absolutely, it's mind-blowing when you think what the alternative is in cymbals. It's like, if you want a different sound, it's 300 quid for another cymbal, isn't it? So this is my ride cymbal. I love this cymbal. In fact, in truth, I love all of these cymbals. That's why I got used to these Gen 16s. That's why I've not changed. But now that sounds like any major bell ride cymbal, doesn't it? But it is actually quieter. If I wanted it louder, I would tape up more of this. Okay, I'll remove a little bit of the tape just so you can hear what difference it makes, okay? So I'll take off these two bits. The reason I don't like taking it off is because I'm really happy with the sound of it. So I'll take those two bits off there, see what difference it makes. It's actually brighter just by taking those two little bits off, but it's actually quieter as well. So yeah, if you've got any questions, I mean, I'm sure you might have questions, but the great thing about this is you can answer your own questions largely by just taping up your cymbals and seeing what works for you. But the most major thing that I was amazed with when I started with this is that how putting the tape on affects the volume as well as the sound. So I will say, categorically, I've never had any issues with anyone telling me that these cymbals were too loud in a theatre. And if you see, we've got seats. I mean, they've moved the seats, but we've got a bar, like there's a bar on here, and usually the seats are so close that there's no room to walk between the bar and the front row. People put their drinks on here sometimes. So the audience are really right up close to me, and there's no complaints. There's really no complaints. It doesn't bleed sufficiently into the mic. I mean, I'm right next to the stage. Look where I am compared to the stage. There's my cymbal, and there's the stage. And there's just no there's no problem. There's no problem at all. So the next thing you need to know is that they're mic'd, just mic'd with regular microphones. I have an issue this year, which is that on this side, so I've got this ride crash. This is like an auxiliary hi-hat, and this is a China. I've got an issue, which is that I've only got one microphone, and it doesn't pick them all up equally. So next year I'm going to demand one for the ride and then one to cover the other three cymbals. On this side, there's a microphone there, if you can see, and then here it's a 12-inch splash. I've got an 18-inch crash, and I've got a 16-inch crash. So these two are picked up by that microphone. And then here, I've got, if you can see, there's a microphone there right underneath the hi-hat, which also picks up which also picks up the chimes. So it's pretty you're back to pretty standard miking, which gives the sound engineer plenty of, well, it gives him his job back. You're not just taking outs from a drum brain, and the sound engineer can alter the sound as you would regular cymbals. So that's pretty much the main things you need to know about this. But yeah, I also use these cymbals unmiked in very, very small venues. Like I play in an open mic with Cajon, and I take the hi-hat and this cymbal actually, and I'm sat actually at a pub table with other people, with the punters accompanying people in open mics, and these cymbals, they just sound great there. It's perfect because it's enough percussion to add some beat to what's going on, but it's not intrusive. People can talk over it. I use them for rehearsals. Even I've got a project coming out. It's my band Malastang. We're starting gigging this year, and in all the rehearsals at home, I'm using this setup. Even with the guitarist is using a Mesa Boogie with 4x12s. It just means he doesn't have to keep turning up the volume, because these cymbals are loud enough and they're defined enough with the tape that we can practice at a lower volume. So yeah, so try gash tape. It sounds fun, doesn't it? But unless someone else has come up with it, I don't see why we shouldn't call it that. I just think once I started playing with these cymbals compared to the pads, there was no going back, no matter how bad the sound was, just because it's a real drumming experience rather than trying to emulate it on pad. The mesh heads don't bother me, but the cymbals, particularly the hi-hat, is awful. And then of course you need to do a lot of effects in panto and in musicals. You've got effects like which you just can't do the same on electronic pads. So yeah, there we go. Hey, you alright? It's okay.
Oh. What are you filming?
I'm making a video about cymbals. This is my mate Ben.
Hello. I know nothing about cymbals.
Apart from what I've taught him.
Yeah.
That's right. So there we go. So yeah, so from all of us here at I was going to say BBC. Filming's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so here we are. This is Aladdin in the Sound Centre at Carlisle. So let me know any questions you've got, and I'll try and make some more videos, because I do see there's a lack of videos on this subject. So all right, cheers.